we are honored to have Dr. Vrinda Varma join us. Dr. Vrinda is a distinguished assistant English professor in the Department of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences at NIT Calicut, who was recently recognized with the prestigious PEN America Literary Grant 2024 for translation of the Malayalam novel Alingam. Welcome, Dr. Vrinda, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
So, Dr. Vrinda, would you like to add anything more about yourself?
Um, I don't know. I've been teaching for the last 12, 13 years. I've been a translator since 2013. And I'm a translator by accident. I was working on a project actually, which one of my faculty members from the English and Foreign Languages University, Dr. Shruti, was editing a course book for children. And so I was roped in to be the author. So I was doing it, and then I got in touch with the editor at DC Books at that time. And then she asked me if I would be interested in translating, and I was generally jobless. So I took up the offer, and yeah, so that was how my first translation came out. This was in 2013, and it was a translation of the Panchatantra, the Malayalam version of it for children. Uh, then was a lean period. So I did my PhD. I entered the job. Again, I was teaching at Thrissur for the last 8 years. And then when COVID came again, I had taken a break from work. Then two translation works happened back to back. One was um, I had actually asked if they had any jobs that they could give me because I had taken a work break from work, like I said, but I was also ants in my pants kind of a thing because I couldn't not do anything. So they gave me another work that I could translate. Again, this was for children. Khalifa Umar was the work that I translated. Uh, and once I had done that, then they asked me how free I was. And I said I was generally free if you discount the fact that I have a baby of 2 months. They said, okay, so you're home. So will you be able to do a work in 3 months? And I said, yeah, okay. But the work was a translation of the Aitihiyamala, which in Malayalam is a very noted composition. This is Aitihiyamala by Kottarathil Shankuni. It is a compendium of more than 126 stories, of which I translated 72 stories in 3 months. It was very challenging for me because, for one, the language, though it is Malayalam, of course, um, is what you could say very archaic Malayalam, very formal. And also, the work is also quite well known in Kerala because you refer to the Aidihimala for mythology, for stories about elephants, about temples. So it was a challenge in that way, and I was daunted by the task. And so 3 months, it was day and night. We were doing the translation. I was doing it. We were sending it to the editor. So it was all happening real time. But yeah, it was a very satisfying experience, and I think that was the first big work of translation that I did. And then again, it's been a lean period. And Alingam, again, like I say, it's a happenstance. So the institute that I worked previously is rather famous or infamous for student movement. So one of those days when the students went on strike, so the faculty, we were just hanging around. Okay, what do we do now? So yeah, so I was talking to this colleague of mine who's from the Malayalam department. He is the one who's authored Alingam, Dr. S. Girish Kumar. So I was, generally, again, feeling what should I do more? I was not feeling very rested actually. I had a job and I wanted to do something else. So I just randomly asked Sir if I could try my hand at translating his work, which incidentally was also listed for the DC Literary Prize in 2018. So I asked him, do you mind? And he said, yeah, of course, go forward. And the very next day, he brought all his books to me and he said, you can try translating whatever. So it happened, and a month after he said you could translate, I moved out from my previous work. I joined here. Then I saw this call for translations on Pen America site, and I applied. I forgot about it in the sense that I didn't do anything else for the translation. So the jury wanted 4,000 words of translation with the original text that I had to send it, which I did, and I didn't have time to go back to it, and now I've picked it up again. So yeah. So that's my journey as a translator, which is pure happenstance, just luck.
Were you scared that anything would go wrong or some negative feedbacks, maybe like you were translating such big words?
Mhm.
Were you afraid that give negative feedback?
I wasn't actually. See, one thing that comes with being, or acquiring a PhD is that you generally get into the hang of researching every single word that you write. So I did my research, but I'll tell you an incident that happened. So the editor had sent me a proof, just the cover layout and everything of the IT Himala that I translated. It was the lore legends and folk tales from Kerala. So they had sent it to me. It was a proof, right? So they had some mistakes here and there, editing mistakes here and there. It was a very beautiful painting and everything. So I sent it to my family group, close family group. And then, you know how parents can be. Even if you're 50, your parents will be like, thrilled about whatever you do. So they sent it to extended groups. And in one of the extended groups, I got very scathing comments. Oh, it doesn't look like, the quality is good because see, they haven't even proofread the blurb. There's so many mistakes. And I was like, oh my God, this is not supposed to be a public document. It was just for the mock-up. But then if this is how people are going to look at things, right? Always looking at the negatives things. And that is when I started becoming scared, actually. Before that, I didn't have time to think about it. So, yeah.
So since today, like I'm assuming you got more careful with maybe the way you handle things, the way you translated things. I mean, obviously you said you research every word.
Mhm.
Were you afraid of maybe making the translation too rigid and taking the emotional side maybe away?
Do you speak from general translation or experience or Alingam? Or,
Jen?
um, okay, so if you want to talk in a very from a pure translator's point of view, we have something called the invisible translator, where you stay as true as you can to the book or the original work as possible, and then bring out the text, the translated text. There are also two terms like domesticating and foreignizing, which means certain words which could be untranslatable into the target language, which in this case is English. For example, off the top of my head, a word like nivedyam is a word in Malayalam, which basically has to do with the food that is offered to the gods. I can choose to retain the word as nivedyam. Then it has, when you just say it as food offered to the gods, it removes all the kind of sacred attachments. Right. So I could just translate it as food for the gods, or I could keep it as nivedyam. But then, if I kept Nivedyam, there were also so many other terms like that, which again I would have to retain. So then you do okay, this I will translate literally, this I will keep. It's a, pull and a push. And I really don't have an idea about when I decide, oh, I should keep it this way. It's not always a very thought out, rationalized process. But sometimes when you write something, you read it, you think it looks good. And you always have an audience in mind as well who's going to read the translated version. uh, so it helps decide things is a little better, I guess. But and in the work that I'm translating right now, Alinga, it tells a story of a very famous theater artist called Ochira Velukutti, who lived during 1930s, which is a peak time for Malayalam theater industry. And in the Malayalam theater, very, very, what can you say? It had commendable works, great artists, great writers. Um, and so in the original work, there's a lot of verses from the actual theaters that were held or hosted during the time. I couldn't translate any of those. It adds to the beauty, but if I wanted to translate, then I would have to. I'm a very bad poet, so I cannot rhyme words. I cannot put it into the meter or anything. So some cases I translated the essence. Some cases I just left it as a transliteration, so that at least if you want to read it, like somebody is interested in Malayalam, they want to know how it sounds, right? So I thought it's best to retain the verse as it is. So again, coming back to do I have an organic way of translating? How do I decide? I don't.
So, out of all the many Malayalam books out there, what aspect of Malayalam attracted you to take up its translation?
So like I said, all the translations that I've done before have not really been chosen by me. It's just been given to me and I did it. So this time, when I offered to translate any work by Dr. Girish, who was my colleague in my previous institution, so he came to me with his books and told me that I could pick anything, which is like the first time that somebody has given me a choice. So I picked Dalingam specifically. There was another novel called Tottichamari, which is also authored by Dr. Girish. I picked Dalingam specifically because my area of research is also in gender. And this seemed to be a very fascinating idea for me that though it's a fictional biography or autobiography, you can call it, it's not really, we don't really know what Ochira Velikutti went through because he was born as a man and it was a long time before gender issues or cure issues came into the foray or people could actually talk about it. Even today, we know that it's a very delicate issue to actually talk about it and be open to discuss it. Coming out that we, the term that we see often, but how does it happen to a lot of people? We don't know these things. Um, no, in the sense we don't know what Velikutti went through. So in that way, it offered a fresh perspective. And I was also interested in other artists like Velikutti. So in Kathakali also we have artists who usually always play the female characters on the stage. They identify themselves as male, but they play the female role. So there is this part in Alingam where Velikutti actually tries to exaggerate his feminine gestures, way of talking, etc., because he doesn't want to be uh, chucked out from the theater group because his existence, his survival, his sustenance is from the money that he makes from the theater, from playing female characters. So he doesn't want to be chucked out. So he exaggerates a little bit on the stage, and he that also oozes out onto his real life. But then there it is a problem. Then people, the moment he steps out of the grease paint, he becomes a human in the sense, and people look at him strangely. That you are a misfit, you're strange. But the moment he does that on stage, people are actually enamored, and there are men who are fascinated with this very beautiful woman. People who profess their love. So he is torn. He wants the adulation. He wants to stay in theater. He wants to better his acting, but he also wants to be accepted as a man. Yeah, so I guess that's what fascinated me most about it. Of course, I hadn't read the whole book before I decided I want to translate it. Just the premise of it, that this was a man who lived. This is a story about a man who actually lived and had to go through certain experiences in life, which was related to my area of research, was primarily what attracted me towards the work. But then I fell in love with it when I read it, and I decided, I knew that this was a story that wanted to be told. So even if it was not me who was translating it, anybody else would have done it, and they should have done it also, because for me, sometimes more than authors, more than translators, what needs to be said is a story itself, and this is an important story. So yeah.
Like during the translation time, right? From the beginning when you start taking a book and later on writing it and in between, what had gone through you?
It's a difficult question because I don't have the luxury of having days at a time where I would sit and translate work and so on. So I do my translation or whatever writing that I do. It happens between my full time day job, right? And there are also other things that happen in life, like family and friends and everything. So, though I would want to ideally spend a lot of time on writing or translating, it doesn't work that way. So this kind of process that you asked me, the beginning, the middle, the end, it doesn't really happen that way. Sometimes I wake up early in the morning and then I translate, and then maybe after a few days is when I get back to it. So then sometimes I don't like what I've written. Sometimes I revise. Sometimes I think it's fine. I'll come back to it later, and I go on doing the whole thing. But now that this time when I'm translating Alingam, I do have the luxury of time because I'm not really sure when it is going to be published. Uh, so until then, I can take my own time to do it. Otherwise, every time I've worked under strict schedules. So I have not really had the liberty to do a lot of revisions. So whatever revisions have come, it has come from the editor. Um, and also when I sometimes in my head it feels that, oh, this part hasn't really worked well. I know it, but even when I've written it down, I know that it hasn't really worked out, and it keeps playing in my head, and then suddenly I, sit in front of the laptop. I have to correct this, and I do that. So it's a very haphazard way of working, but yeah, it has worked for me so far.
Is it easy to balance like and translation? And you said you started off when you had a small kid.
Yeah.
With challenging, you enjoy the process at that time, especially.
I think I can answer this not as a practicing translator, but as somebody who has a full-time job that demands and requires a lot of time and effort. Uh, Plus having my own interests and hobbies and wanting to read or wanting to listen to music and all those things. So half the time your life is spent between, dividing time between your passions, what actually pays the dough, which is work. The long and short of it is that we are in it for the money as well, because if I didn't have the security of this job, uh, I don't see myself taking a break from my job and then devoting myself to literature or anything. I also enjoy teaching, that's there. So managing everything, yes, it is a tough ask, and sometimes I'm a better teacher than a better translator. On other days, I'm a better mother than a better wife. So I think at the end of it, it all sort of balances it out. But if you take it on a daily basis, I could be a very bad mother today because I'm tired, I'm angry, I don't want to do anything, I'm all touched out, I just want to go and sleep. But I'm not able to do that, right? So maybe I go to bed after screaming at my children. But tomorrow I'm a better person. So I think it's a juggle, but I'm happy.
And how would you describe the evolution of your interest in literature and philosophy throughout your childhood and early life?
It's a loaded question. It's just simple thing I think is that it was probably in my fourth when we shifted from Kotte, where I used to live, to Cochin, and I had nobody to play with. So no playgroup, nobody to spend my time after school. And my house was full of books. My mother used to read a lot, and all the books that she has carried down from her childhood, it was all there, all Enid Blyton's. I started reading, and I seemed to enjoy it more. And then I think I stuck on with it because I couldn't see myself doing anything for a long time than reading. And I say this to my friends also who ask me, how do you find time to read? I always say that reading is like breathing to me. If I don't read at least for 5 or 10 minutes a day, uh, I feel very upset. Uh, Now I also have to drive quite a lot to work and back. So now I've discovered my love for audiobooks as well. So then I don't feel as guilty that I've not actually read something. I can also listen to books during my day. But yes, I do make it a point to read something every day, even if it is short stories that come on, online journals or physical book or my Kindle, anything. But yes, I cannot imagine a day where I don't read.
If you could describe philosophy in few words, what is philosophy to you?
I don't know. I don't think there is a great deal to be made about philosophy, and this is just a personal opinion, okay? Because what I believe is my philosophy in life might not apply to you at all. So, great people, great minds have said a lot of things, but whatever gives you happiness and whatever doesn't hurt anybody else, I think that is as good as any philosophy in the world. I think that's it. So many beautiful quotes, so many great philosophers, great ideas, great thinking styles. With all respect to all of that, I don't think there is a single solution to any of life's problems, uh, to mind's problems, to the problems that we might have in our daily basis. So, whatever gives you peace, I think that's the best philosophy that you can adopt.
So then, what is your philosophy, like the principle of morals which you go through in your day-to-day life?
Um, I really haven't thought about it that often. But I've sometimes been accused of being too forthright, that I don't wait to see out the two sides of a problem or anything. Whatever comes to my mind first, it just naturally comes out. I've tried not to change that a lot, but maybe soften down how I, give my opinion. But otherwise, I think nothing more.
What's philosophy to you in your words?
Um, the simple thing is that whatever works for one person might not work for the other. So even though we have a lot of great thinkers, great philosophies, different isms that people believe and follow in, uh, I do not think that one philosophy or one way of thinking is better than the other, because uh, what is good for one, like I said, might not be for the other. Having said that, I really like Carl Sagan's idea of the pale blue dot, that, we are quite insignificant, right? Human beings are insignificant. And I think I also said it in one of my classes. I don't know if it is in NITC or somewhere else. If you look at the scope and breadth of the universe, right, the farther you go, you use as a telescope and look at the space, you become smaller and smaller and smaller. Um you go the other way around, right? Microscope, electron microscope, you keep zooming into the smallest detail, there is still a very vast world out there. So we are just simply mere insignificant, you know, creatures on this world. And I think our philosophy must be to treat ourselves as that. Don't give us too much importance, self-importance, importance to the human race. All that we are probably doing is killing the earth softly, or whatever. But yeah, so the less importance we give to ourselves, I think that's fine.
So translators rarely get recognized as much as the authors themselves, but they are the reason that these books are able to reach a wider audience. So do you think that translators get the
Um, I'd like to answer this in two ways. One, there is a growing interest in global literature these days. So the importance of translated works are more. But I also believe that without the original work, without an author, translators really don't have a role to play. Right? So unless a book gets written, unless a great story gets to be told, what does a translator do? Uh, so I think a translator can only exist if good works are being written. That's the first thing. Second thing, the interest in global literature is something quite heartening. We get to read, as a reader myself, more than as a translator. I'm quite happy to read books that come out of different parts of the world. Like today, I'll be reading something from Japan, let's say, or tomorrow I'll be reading something that's been written by a Nigerian author, an Indian author. So we have quite a lot of choices to read from. And I know that it is available to me because so many other translators have also worked behind it. So I think and authors do. There is a saying that an author is dead, right? Once an author finishes the work and it's left to the reader to read, the author is done, right? How people interpret what they read, the meanings that they make of it, the author really doesn't have a role to play. So just like that, a translator can help the book reach a wider audience, but I think it should end with that. And I'd like to revisit the answer that I gave previously. We should seriously just stop giving so much of importance to us, just works, just stories, people, right? And
You know, one of the things that what built America and position for the half. What was your reaction when you got the news?
um, okay, so usually Penn announces its winners by fall, American fall, which is September, October, or something. So I submitted this into 2023 April, and so I kept checking the website. So September, October, November, December, nothing. So I thought maybe they didn't get any entries this time. They're not giving the prize to anybody. Like, so I kind of lost hope. And this is also the time then I have written a book and I was sending it to publishers, to agents. So every day I would open my mail and I would get rejections. So then I was at that point where I thought, okay, so my book is not going to get published. The pen is not happening. So this is me with my job and I'll just do it. And then suddenly I get a mail from Pen America in Jan saying that, I've been selected, but this is a top secret news and you shouldn't share it with anybody. So I don't know if I'm breaking any confidentiality clause now by saying that. But then, But then there was radio silence after that. So I get this mail in on Jan 11th, uh, till 2 weeks ago. So April, I think Good Friday was the day that they really announced it to the world. So till then, again, no response, no reply. I did actually send them a mail asking, are you going to do something about it? Should I be doing something? So I honestly thought they made a mistake. And, they sent it to me by mistake. I didn't win it at all. So then finally, when it came as an announcement on their website, yes, I was happy to accept that this has happened. Yes, it is um, one of the best awards, I think, for translators out there. So I'm happy. And I'm hoping that, this award is probably also one way in which I can get more access to not better, I would say, but more variety of works that I can hope to translate in the future. And that is something that I'm looking forward to. And my priority right now would be to see Alingam through. Because, like I said, it is a book that deserves to be read by a whole lot of people. So that's what I'm hoping for.